1.
Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to our meeting, our Adult Select meeting, Tuesday the 16th of March, and most members are with us. Do we have any apologies, Hazel?
We don't, Chair.
Councillor Ruth Edwards.
Oh, Councillor Ruth Edwards. Yes, we've got Ruth. That's it, I think. We've got full house, bar Ruth. Yeah, okay. Declarations of interest. As and when there's anything crops up there you're not too sure about, just step in and we'll resolve that and we'll sort that out for you. Open public forum. I don't think we've got anybody who wants to speak today, reference to the open public forum. We have Tony with us today, Tony Crowhurst, who is a member of the group, selected onto the group there as an independent member. Morning, Tony.
Good morning.
Morning. And then we've got agenda item number 4. Before we go into agenda item number 4, I just want to have a minute reference to Councillor Dovey. Councillor Dovey, who was an adamant attendee at our select committees, and I think it's very important that we just have a few words for him. And I know officers who were very close to David, especially on the scrutiny side of it, have a time of reflection for David. So I'll say a few words and we'll just have a moment's silence for David and remember David, all his hard work and his humour and all his questions that he gave us over the years within the select. And I had some real deep good memories of David and had a lot of thought for him as well as a member. So if we just have a minute's pause just to remember David, and if anybody wants to say anything as well, just you're very welcome. I'll open it up. We do have not that busy agenda today, but I'm sure we can spare 5 minutes for people to say something. So we'll just have a minute for David and remember all the good things about him, and I don't think there's any bad things you could think about him. So let's just have 1 minute, please. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was really appreciated. Anybody like to say anything, or is everybody okay? Okay, I got no raised hands, so I think we'll move on. Right, agenda item number 4. We have community learning and libraries, and just a chat about where we are with the portfolio. Who's taking us? I've got Richard Drinkwater. Richard, yeah, and is Cheryl with us as well on this one? Yeah.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, take us through that, Richard, please.
This would be a bit of a double-header presentation, for want of a better term. Cheryl looks after our library services strategic lead, myself as strategic lead on community learning for Monmouthshire. So just to sort of kick us off with the community education realms, I think it's fair to say COVID has pushed us into quite an unusual space for community education. Historically, it's always been a service that's been driven by face-to-face contact with learners. We've always had aspirations about moving into a digital space and utilising Teams, Zoom and other sort of digital mediums for delivery, basically as a means to break down the geographical barriers within Monmouthshire, where we could be running a course in Abergavenny, but because of transport links, everything else, it could be off the cards for someone from us to attend. So COVID has done us many favours in that respect. So sort of looking at this academic year, adult learning delivery our strategy has been very much tailored and shaped by our work with Coleg Gwent, where we work as a partner, as part of a 5 counties partnership, along with Blaenau Gwent, Caerphilly, Newport and Torfaen. And it's enabled us to go through some quite rapid iterations of what we do to enable to still reach out and support learners in our communities. Partnership work has been very crucial over the last year, if not essential, and it's been underpinned by that partnership approach. We've played a role in scaling up a response in support of with support of colleagues from the Youth Enterprise team in regards to adults potentially facing redundancy because of the pandemic and its effect on local economy. Key examples of that being Northern Automotive in Gilwan and Caldecott with the Waitrose store closure. But the one thing that has been critical to enable us to do what we've done is essentially pressing the turbo boost button on the digital skills of our tutors and learners alike. And this has been noted by Estin, who have been doing some desktop inspections of local authorities and their moves to support learners during the pandemic. And Estin have been very complimentary in regards to the work of the 5 counties partnership and how we've worked very closely with our tutors and learners to bring everyone to a place where they can engage comfortably. And this year alone, we've been successful in securing circa £15,000 worth of funding from Welsh Government. This enabled us to buy 30 plus netbook devices, 18 MiFi units to enable people who don't have broadband at home to be able to access classes, as well as various other sort of peripheral devices to provide those gateways to adult learning. As we stand at the moment, we have engaged with, this year alone, 163 learners across various courses, whether that's been level 1 literacy and numeracy classes, ESOL for English speakers of another language, as well as some of our more what we class as leisure classes. So your arts-based classes, creative writing, and so on and so forth. So I think it's fair to say that as a service, we've taken every advantage or pulled every advantage we can from what COVID has offered us in regards to being able to change our service to meet the needs of our communities. And I think that's an apt point to hand over to Cheryl now for an update on our library service.
Cheryl?
Thank you very much. Good morning, all. Yes, so just building on what Richard has said, really. We went into a state of lockdown last March, so around about a year ago now, and were quickly forced to adapt our services quite dynamically, really, to meet the needs of the same audience, but in a very different way. We closed for a little while because we were forced to do so, but during the closure, we worked with our colleagues throughout our Wales partnership to create and to build a new service. And so during that time, during the time that we were closed, a number of our colleagues went out to work in different areas. So they were posted out into business grant support, track and trace, that some of them were deployed to the contact centre and to support some telephony there as well. So our colleagues were for a little while deployed into different areas, but very quickly we devised a plan for building on our digital offer in Monmouthshire and also our request and collect service that we still are currently offering at this moment in time. So request and collect has built nicely throughout that time. I do have a few slides here. I'm not sure whether you would want to see them, but Our request and collect from June through to March 2021 has taken on 2,500 customer registrations. So that they have registered purely to access that service. During that time, we have dealt with 9,000 book reservations. So that's not only for people who were looking to reserve reading material for themselves, but also for people who were reserving for other people as well. So people who are shielding and people who have been isolated. And in doing that, giving them a continued service, a very valued continued service. We also have seen a rapid growth in our digital ebooks and audiobooks. So I've got some figures there, but essentially we have a growth of leading up to we peaked in January 2021 at over 2,500 on the year before. So it's like grown month on month since March last year. So our digital audiobooks actually are very, very successful. We've had some figures back to inform us that overall our digital loans have increased by almost 90% in the past year. The cost of a digital loan is 13 pence per loan, so it's very cost effective. Our loans per capita in Monmouthshire are the highest of all 22 local authorities. So that's something that we are quite proud of in this past year. And active users in Monmouthshire borrowed 6% more items in February this year than they did last year. So our e-digital offer continues to grow, and we are committed to continuing with that. That also includes, of course, our e-magazines. So not just books, but we have a wider offer as well. And just to give you a sort of comparison year on year, in 2018-19, we issued remotely 15,350 e-magazines. That grew in 2021 to 31,000. So we more than doubled our e-magazine offer during that time. This sort of demonstrates, I think, really that during this period when some of our users haven't been able to access our traditional offer, they have looked to an alternative offer that is suitable for them. So it's really good, I think, that we've increased our digital capacity and our digital offer. Home delivery has continued throughout this time. We have had some issues, of course, in as much as our home delivery hasn't been able to access care homes and nursing homes because of the COVID restrictions. But nevertheless, we've continued to adapt and to offer where we can. Currently, as of this week, we have 103 active customers for home delivery, and these are people who normally would not be able to get to a library anyway. So these are people who would otherwise be very isolated and alone and detached from some of our services. And throughout the 4-week period at the moment, we are issuing to our home users around about 500 books across those 103 active users. So that again is a very valuable and very worthwhile offer. We have also, of course, in this year opened our new Abergavenny hub. And that's been absolutely fantastic. As you can no doubt see behind me, my backdrop is the mezzanine area in the hub. And yes, that's been lovely. We did open very briefly for browsing in September, but of course, due to the restrictions, we were forced to close again in December. That said, the restrictions have now been relaxed somewhat, and we are looking now to reopen our services from the end of March. So we can start to reopen our services from the 27th. So yes, that's just about where we are really with our library service at the moment. We've continued each week to do a digital story time for our children. So that's gone online on our Monmouthshire Hub's social media pages. That's had some lovely feedback and has been well received. And also this year we've done different events through the year. We did our Holocaust Memorial event remotely and some of those events too. But this year as well, we will be doing our World Book Night will be remote, and also our annual children's reading program as well will be online, and we will be managing that slightly differently. But yeah, all in all, it's lovely.
Okay, thank you both. And from members, can we pass on our gratitude and thanks for all your hard work during the last 12 months. It's not been easy, and I'm sure it's not been easy for your teams as well. So can you pass that on, please, to the teams and thank them for their hard work and their sterling work as well. Richard and Cheryl, thank you. I've got a few members want to ask a few questions. So, and I don't know what's happening there, but it seems to me whoever goes up first ends up last here. So I'm going to go from the top of my screen. I've got Roger, then Louise, Tony, and then Maureen. So I'll start with Roger.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Cheryl. I noticed from your report, it looks like we've got over half the population of the county actually registered for the library. Was it 46,000, something like that? That is truly amazing. But in your report, you also say the county falls short against expenditure on the services and the number of staff employed. How far short are you on both? And if you had what you think you should have, what other things do you think you'd be able to do to make the service even better than it is at the moment? So given more money, what could you do, basically?
Okay. Well, our budgets were cut as part of a service reduction a few years ago now. It's probably about 4 years ago, I think. We went through a restructure, and the budget was cut then by the book budget was cut by about 50%. So we do have a lot less than we had probably about 4 years ago. That said, that's also reflective of most of the other local authorities in Wales. And I was at a Welsh Government meeting with my colleagues around about 2 weeks ago. And actually, you know, we are on a par really with most of those other local authorities in terms of spending. It's a tricky one, I think. If we had more money, well, you know, the sky's the limit. I think what we try and do at the moment is we try and circulate as much of our material as we possibly can. So whereas several years ago, our habits are slightly different, I think it's fair to say. Several years ago, we might have bought several copies of a book per, let's call it library for the purpose of this conversation, but we would have bought several copies of a book per library. We no longer do that. We now only buy 1 or 2 copies and we circulate those copies through. So actually, in that sense, we've become more thrifty, but we manage it in the same way. So we don't necessarily lose out for customers. What we also do is, if we have a specific request for a book, then you know, in most cases we would be able to get that book for the customer and to shelve that so that it's available for others. So don't think it's not holding us back greatly. If we had more money, yes, of course we could do more stuff. But it's the $64 million question, isn't it? You know, the more money you have, the more money you spend. We've just had to become more thrifty, but more creative in how we issue our material. We have invested more money year on year into digital because we can see the change in trends as well. So, you know, as more people are turning to a digital preference, then we've invested more money into being able to provide more of those materials. Where do we fare in terms of staffing, I think you asked. So the report marks us down for staffing, and the reason that we are marked down is, my own view is that it's quite unfair really, is because we are community hubs and not purely libraries. So Welsh Government won't count the council hours that our colleagues work. So we can only count a proportion of their time towards the library hours. That isn't going to change for as long as we're a community hub. And again, that's reflective of other local authorities in Wales. So where you've got community hubs, they will not allow you to count the council hours. You have to only count a proportionate amount of hours based on the time that our colleagues offer to the library service. Now, that in effect really is a nonsense because they work generically through the service. Abergavenny is a little bit different because it's a service offered across 2 floors. And therefore, you know, the flow is different to what it would be in our other community hubs. But in actual fact, our colleagues in other community hubs just work through the services. We don't separate them into council and library. But Welsh Government just don't recognise that, unfortunately.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. Roger, does that answer your question yet?
Absolutely. Thanks, Cheryl. It sounds like you grabbed the bull by the horns. You've had to change because of COVID, and it's bringing out the best in many services. Because let's face it, you know, doing the same old thing is nice and cozy, etc. You know, why should we change? It's working all right. And when you have to change, you have to innovate. And it's good to hear that you're certainly doing that as far as I'm concerned. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Louise next.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened to the order because I think possibly Tony and Maureen were before me, but I'll go ahead if you like. Or
yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask a question about in the report. It said that you know, the scientific evidence suggested 72 hours of leaving books before they were redistributed, and that had changed. So I just wanted an explanation how it was changed, and I wondered if you could explain. You mentioned some sort of charging structure, and if you could explain that, because I'm not quite sure. Say, for example, on a digital platform, if you've got books or magazines, whether you then have to pay some sort of license agreement, and it's the number of users, or how it actually works out. So basically, the first question is about the 72 hours. The second question is about how the digital platform works. And then the third question is about the census, because it sounds to me as if, you know, you mentioned the people who were sort of more housebound that you delivered books to. And these are probably the same sort of people who may have difficulty in completing these census, you know. So I just wondered whether there was a link up there. So 3 questions, basically. I hope I haven't made it too complicated. I've tried to split them up. So I tend to think of several things at once. And I suppose on the digital side, on the charging side, wondered if there was a difference between books and magazines, and are newspapers also included? Thank you.
Okay, so if I can go to your first question there, I think was about quarantining of books. So current guidance still states that we have to quarantine books for 72 hours. So that's what we're going with at the moment. Books are issued via our request and collect. They go out to our customers, and then customers return them to the hub or to the one-stop shop in Abergavenny. The customers return them and drop them into a box there, and they are boxed up and taken out of circulation then for 72 hours. So that's still where we're at with that at the moment. Welsh Government are not advising anything different, and until such time that they do, then that's what we'll be working with. It isn't causing us any difficulty, I have to say, and it hasn't caused us any difficulty all throughout the period of COVID. Customers understand why we do it and why we have to do it. And yeah, as I said, we are with that now until such time that we're advised otherwise. In terms of our digital platform, I have lots and lots of figures here, Councillor Brown. Maybe it might be more helpful, I think, rather than try and show you slides because it is very small, if I can forward some of that information over to you following the meeting, along with the slides that I prepared for the presentation. Would that be more suitable, Councillor Howarth?
Yes, I think that for both of you, if any information there, just forward them to Hazel, and Hazel will bounce them back out then to members of the
thank you. Yeah.
I think it just would be more helpful in terms of you being able to read and absorb and compare and contrast.
Okay, thank you.
So I can send that out after.
Yeah,
Census, I think, was the third point, and we have become census support centres in 3 of our areas. So currently, Abergavenny, Usk and Chepstow, I think, Richard, if I'm correct, are census support centres. What we are able to offer there is on an appointment basis, we're able to support any users over the phone to fill in their census paper. At the moment, I did go back to Matt Gatehouse yesterday, and I believe Matt has gone back to the company who are managing the census, the Good Things Foundation. Matt went back yesterday to ask if it was possible for us to do some face-to-face, because of course we acknowledge that it's all well and good us saying to people we'll provide you some support over the phone, and that's perfectly acceptable for some people, that, you know, they would prefer that. But by the same measure, we also have people who would want to come in and see someone face-to-face to get support with that. Our hubs are set up very safely to enable that to happen, and I know that Matt, you know, would share my view, as does Richard, that if we are open for council services, then I can't see any difference in placing an appointment in the diary for someone to come and have some help and support to fill in their census paper in the hub itself. So that's hopefully we'll get an answer back about that sometime later today, because I know Matt took it yesterday. But basically, yes, we are census support, so we can offer that support and advice and help for people.
Is there a separate number for that, or is it just a normal contact centre number?
It's the contact centre number,
Okay,
and people can make an appointment to see one. We have several trained staff, so people can have an appointment with one of those people. We also have, in that pool, we also have 2 Welsh speakers as well. So if someone wants to conduct their census support in Welsh language, we can offer that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Tony, and then I have Maureen, and then Sheila. Tony?
Thank you, Simon. Richard, Cheryl, I'm not a councillor. I've been co-opted on the committee to air the points about relating to the lives of disabled people. So one of the key issues that we're concerned about these days is digital exclusion.
Yeah.
And we have many disabled people who are excluded. Some of those will doubtless in normal times come into the libraries for training and use the computers there, but many of them have been isolated, particularly in Monmouthshire this is the case. So my question is, how have you overcome that? And if you have a message that you would like to get out, we're more than willing to put it on our website so that other people can view it. So it's both the library services and the training that I'm asking how you have overcome it. You mentioned at one point that the audience was the same now. I would dispute that because there are so many more people who are isolated now and do not have the same abilities to get out in the real world, as it were. And in passing, I would point out that the hub that you're speaking from, Cheryl, would be a no-no to many disabled people because, to my knowledge, it's on the first floor and you need a lift to get there, and many disabled people would not use that because of fire risks. So those are my points. Thank you.
Okay. Can I hand over to Richard for digital exclusion, please? Because I know Richard's done a lot of work in that area. So.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for your question. In regards to digital exclusion, yeah, that's something that's been on our radar for a very, very long time. And as an authority, Monmouthshire has suffered somewhat through being, up until this academic year, one of the poorest funded authorities in Wales in regards to its provision of community education, which by consequence has meant we've always been in a position where we've struggled to invest within the service. This year, thankfully, due to a new funding structure within Welsh Government, we've seen our funding for community education for our direct delivery skyrocket in no uncertain terms from a little over £2,000 to £55,000. That's put us into a bracket position where we could actually bid for further funding to not solve but partly address digital exclusion within Monmouthshire. As previously, due to the level of funding we had, we were excluded from applying for further funding. So as I touched upon in my brief report back earlier, we were awarded circa £15,000 this year. Part of the grant application process, I worked with some colleagues from Newport to do some mapping of digital exclusion and pockets of where that digital exclusion exists within Monmouthshire. It certainly highlighted areas along what I would class as sort of the Maygate to Caldicot corridor. So you're looking at the Roggett and Undy areas, as well as some outlying areas around Abergavenny were certainly sort of, for want of a digital term, hotspots for us in regards to where we could identify where digital exclusion was sort of existed. So what we did was use that intelligence to sort of prioritise where we put the spend of that £15,000, because it'd been very easy just to buy a glut of laptops and say they're here for people to borrow. But having a laptop is one thing, but having a connectivity is another. We're also very cited that Monmouthshire, we do suffer with poor connectivity, whether that was via broadband or mobile signal. So getting people online, and the means to do it in a secure and easy to access means was also very important for us as part of the grant application process. Part of what we invested, or a large part of what we invested the grant in, was MiFi devices, which are essentially a standalone broadband emitter. Works very much like a mobile phone if you switch your phone to a mobile hotspot. So you're reliant on being able to get these devices out to people in areas that have got a degree of a 4G signal. If they've got a degree of a 4G signal, we can provide them with broadband, and we can provide them with the device to connect and engage. One of the key things, though, is it's not always about digital poverty, but digital competency as well. Because it's all very well being able to provide the people with the devices, but how you're going to be able to tutor them in a socially distant or digital manner into using the devices. So that's kicked up its own set of unique problems, I suppose, in its own right. What we have been doing through some work with Coleg Gwent and the setup of digital mentors in each one of the counties that make up the 5 counties partnership is some socially distanced teaching aids and walkthrough guides to enable people who may not be that familiar with devices, with maybe 10 minutes of socially distanced face-to-face contact, to be able to go away and leave a building once they collect their device, to be able to get online and start engaging. We as a service inside community education totally see that it doesn't necessarily replace what a person would get from coming along to one of our classes in a hub, in regards to that social time that someone is having. You know, you can engage over a digital platform, but it doesn't necessarily put the spark in place that it would if you sat in a room with a number of people. But we see it as a very small step to sort of digital enablement and taking steps towards social isolation as well.
Thank you.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hello.
Have you anything, Tony? Cheryl, have you anything in reference to the hub there in Abergavenny for access and things? Just anything which is going to be altered there, or Tony made the point?
I'm not aware that there are going to be any alterations. I do take your point in terms of accessibility, and it's probably not a, it's not a one size fits all then, for want of a better phrase. The previous library wasn't neither, and actually the space that we have and the facilities that we can offer, I think, far exceed what we were offering in Baker Street. We had a library there that had accessible entrance via a service entrance only. Here we have a lift that is accessible from the ground floor, from the ground floor entrance. We also have toilet facilities in the library that are accessible. We didn't have any toilet facilities in the previous library that were very accessible to anyone. Only one small tiny toilet accessible via a split stairwell. Also, there's much more room to get around and to maneuver much more easily, I think, in this new space that we've got. So I think it may not be perfect, but actually it's a million times better than what we had previously. What I have done to try and ease the situation with the lift is, I know that I had a question a little while ago about scooters, and could people in scooters access via the lift. We have worked with people in Abergavenny who use, or we worked with a person actually who uses a scooter. They came over and tried it for us, and they actually thought that it was quite good, quite well set up. I've acquired a scooter for the first floor so that if someone does need a scooter to get around, then they can do. I'm just open to all suggestions, but I'm not sure that we will be adding any more adaptations at this time.
Can I make a comment, Simon?
Yes, Tony, yeah.
One of the rules about developments is that there should be an equality impact assessment undertaken. Yeah. In this situation, I would suggest that perhaps the designs were produced prior to that requirement. I would just put a marker down for all councillors that equality impact assessments are crucial aspects of any designs that are put forward in the future, and that perhaps the lessons of this particular hub would serve as an aid to memoir to those who get involved in developments for the council in the future. That's all. Thank you, Simon.
Okay, thanks for that, Tony. I'm sure long term we can have a look at resolutions to just help and push it along. I'm sure that will be possible out there for people to gain better access. Thank you, Cheryl. Right, I've got Maureen and then Sheila. Maureen.
Thank you, Chairman. I must congratulate you on Cheryl on all that you've done, particularly through COVID. I've been shielded because I've got lymphoma. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to use the library. I've got half a dozen books waiting to come back. And I am going to be allowed to go out after the end of the month. So hopefully I can go there again. But beforehand, I attended the library a couple of times, this new library, and I thought that the facilities were marvellous. I use a three-wheel walker thing when I'm in town, and I have no problem going in the lift with that. But of course, it's a lot smaller than actual mobile things. But I find it so much easier and so much room to move around in. It's wonderful. And your report is marvellous, the number of people that you've reached out to and helped. I just want to congratulate you and keep up the good work. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maureen. Sheila.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just add my congratulations, Richard and Cheryl? I've had the opportunity of visiting all the hubs, and I've seen firsthand the enthusiasm throughout the last 12 months. You've summarised 12 months, determination to keep services running as best you both could and to adapt, be flexible. I mean, I just admire what you've both done. And I was going to ask a question about digital inclusion, but Richard, you more than adequately covered that topic when you answered Tony's question, because obviously you're always looking out to improve services. And Cheryl, along with all of this, you've opened the new hub in Abergavenny. You know, I just think you've done a wonderful job, and your teams are so enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. And to think that you've remained open these past few months when everywhere else practically is closed, you've kept the essential service to have open. And I know it's challenging because obviously you can't anticipate what staff you're going to need, how many people are going to walk through that door requiring your help. So I just wanted to add my thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I've got Louise, your hand's gone back up again.
Yes, just to quickly come back, you know, to reiterate the thanks for the way you've managed to both adapt the services and the staff have to the COVID, you know, if you can pass on our thanks for that, because obviously, you know, the digital side particularly has been pushed quite a lot, and then thinking of the people who are isolated and need a delivery service. I just wondered on a proactive basis whether they should be targeted on the census side as well, just to make sure that they were fully engaged with that particular aspect. I just wondered about, pleased to hear about how the new Abergavenny hub is working well, but I just wondered about the other hubs, you know, for example, in my area, the Chepstow one, and how well that was adapted to disabled toilets and so forth. And I just wondered if you could comment on that as well, because obviously, you know, all the hubs need to be accessible for different people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Councillor Brown. Well, as you probably know, the Chepstow hub falls in my remit. In regards to disabled facilities, earlier in 2020, just prior to lockdown, we had a full refurbishment of the ground floor disabled toilets. They're now completely up to spec with everything we needed in there. The toilets hadn't been sort of looked at, for want of a better term, probably since the building had its initial refresh in the early 2000s. So, you know, I'm comfortable to say and go on the record that, you know, the facilities we have are open access. They're on the ground floor. They're open to the public as well as the hub users. And, you know, we are there to provide that inclusive and accessible service for all members of the community. We've also got also got disabled facilities on the first floor and a DDA compliant lift from the ground floor up to the first floor of the building as well. So I think Chepstow Hub is very well catered for access to all members of the community.
Yeah, that's good. It's probably a little less room to manoeuvre, I would think, but I'm pleased to hear that that's been done. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you both, and as said many times, pass on our sincere thanks and gratitude to all your staff during this period of, and I say uncertainty, but hopefully it's not uncertainty for too long. So hopefully we can move forward and look forward to coming out there and having a look at what we have there. I've not been in the new library in Abergavenny, but I do like your screenshot at the back there. It looks quite exciting there. And I'm sure that the problems that we envisage, we can get round them eventually. And,
Yes.
and when it comes to budget, Cheryl, I mean, you put your requests in, and I'm sure members, times have changed as well. I just want to ask a quick question of Richard about 15,000. Doesn't seem a lot of money, grant for laptops and getting people online. What would that do? Would that 20 laptops and little bits and pieces, where does it go, that kind of money on getting people online and learning?
That grant itself, we sort of use scale of markets really in regards to our purchasing and purchase wisely. Also, what we did in regards to looking at devices we were purchasing was looking at a lower monetary value per unit as well, as opposed to the laptops that we would use for work. They're a far more scaled back piece of equipment that is, I think, in a easy way to describe it, wouldn't set our heart rates go racing too high if it disappeared, for want of a better term. So working with Welsh Government initially, we sourced 30 devices. Unfortunately, due to supply chain issues with Welsh Government and getting the devices from China, we would still be waiting now for those devices to land in the UK and be able to hand out to members of the public. So we went to market and we managed to source 32 netbooks. 20 of those are actually out in the community as we speak. The 18 MiFi devices, which our digital projects team assisted with the purchase of, and the ongoing line rentals for the SIM cards. We also purchased and refreshed 11 iPads that we use within the hubs for some of our digital classes. Also purchased 4 Facebook portal devices, and I don't know if you're familiar with those. It looks very much like a tablet, except it's got a fisheye lens on it. So it runs with Zoom, which is what we've been using for a lot of our digital delivery to our communities. But what it's enabled us to do is to lend those out to some of our tutors who deliver maybe a prime example would be our parent and child cookery classes that are traditionally hosted out of the centre in Abergavenny. The tutor puts the portal on her kitchen working top. Due to the nature of the fisheye lens, those people who are dialing in from home have a very clear picture of what she's doing in regards to preparation and cooking, and can watch the session and participate in the session almost in a face-to-face environment, except our tutor sat in Abergavenny in her kitchen, and we've got learners pan Monmouthshire indulging in the class. So, this investment has been absolutely extraordinary, what it's allowed us to do and break down some of the geographical issues, I suppose is a nice way of putting it. We've had people in one part of the county wanting to participate in a class that has traditionally been hosted out of a bricks and mortar facility in another part of Monmouthshire. So, COVID has done us a couple of favours in encouraging us to accelerate some of our wishes and dreams that we would like to achieve through using digital means.
Okay, thanks for that. And Cheryl, you just want to have a few words?
Yeah, just to add to that, really. We have also, myself and Fiona Ashley in the library service successfully bid for around about £15,000 from Welsh Government, and that's for all digital tech to go out into our communities. And also we're currently working with Miranda Thomason from Gavo who is heading up a partnership, and they have successfully bid for 30k, for which we are with which we are creating a digital learning library. So we've actually between us, we've got quite a fair bit of resource going into digital equipment to create the digital learning library. So yes, that's happening as we speak. We haven't got that equipment yet, but we have won the bid, and we're just going out now to purchase that equipment.
All right, well done, well done. Thank you, and thank you both, and keep the good work up. I've got no other questions members need to ask or want to ask, so I'm going to move on. Okay, are you staying for the next agenda item, both? Which is the verbal update regarding position of adult services COVID-19 pressures. Who's taking through that? Is that Eve Parkinson? Is Eve on with us at the moment?
I am. I'm here.
Ah, there you go, Eve. Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Okay, Eve, we received an email from yourself or from Hazel, reference just some background. So if you want to just take us through that, and
Yeah.
then we'll press them. Thanks, Eve.
Will do. So as I've said in the sort of overview of this, it's not exhaustive, but it's just to give a bit of an insight into what's been keeping us busy really over the last year. So I've just tried to sort of put it in headings, and a lot of them, you know, go across. You know, they're not standalone. So PPE, as it says, first started delivering in April of last year. I think it was the Thursday before Good Friday when we went into community transmission, and that was probably an extremely busy weekend for us. And as it says, we deliver approximately 360,000 pieces of PPE every 2 weeks. We provide to our own services, but also the independent sector. And then at the beginning of this month, lateral flow device tests were included in that delivery, and we have received most of the stock for that, and what we've done is we've given people 3 months supply. Residential settings, I'm sure people are very aware that this has been a very challenging area over the last year. We have worked very closely with our providers, and we've had regular meetings where any of them can join in, where we've gone through things like the guidance, but we've also offered support. We've also been there whenever people have wanted us, if that's on an individual basis. There's been the hardship fund from the Welsh Government, which we provided support for people in what they're able to claim through that. Some of them obviously have had significant financial impact throughout the pandemic. We've worked very closely with our colleagues in both environmental health, but also in the Health Board and Public Health Wales complex care teams in supporting homes that are having outbreaks. I think probably the worst months were over the Christmas time and January time, where we had some very challenging situations, and we're also very mindful and supporting those homes in dealing with that. You know, we had several homes where staff didn't go home for weeks on end, supporting through significant outbreaks, and obviously that has an impact on the, you know, emotions and how those homes cope. So we're doing a lot of signposting them and supporting them through those sorts of things. And now, of course, they've got the introduction of the lateral flow device testing. And I think it's fair to say that it's a lot of additional work for the homes to do. You know, so they still have their weekly whole home testing, and now all their staff also have to do twice weekly lateral flow device testing, and the results have to be submitted. So, you know, there's quite a bit of work. And now, of course, the recent announcement that visits can start again, so it's supporting homes in how they will do that, and if need be, helping them fill out the risk assessments that have come via Welsh Government. Care at home, much the same, lots of support to the independent sector. Provision of domiciliary care has been a challenge at times. We've obviously had staff shortages, people who've been poorly with the virus or isolating, some staff shielding. We've worked very closely with the independent sector, so if the independent sector have had a challenging time, because the tendency has been that they will have a period of time where they aren't able to meet their demand, and that period, because of isolation or whatever, will last probably about 7 or 8 days. So we've had to support, and then on a couple of very rare occasions we just haven't had the capacity to support, so we've had to bring in outside agencies. But on the whole, our staff across the sector, whether that be nursing or therapies, at times it's basically been all hands on deck. Reablement, we've carried on through the pandemic. Some of that work's been done virtually and some actually, depending on the circumstances. I think it's fair to say that the impact of lockdown has been quite significant. A horrible phrase really is used, but they talk about people becoming deconditioned, whereby because they haven't been going out and about and doing their usual activities, people have actually become frailer and more dependent. So we are seeing a rise in some of the referrals, and I think also because people haven't been accessing their GP or have been reluctant to go into hospital, understandably, then that's had an impact on some people's health and well-being. Same for social work. So carried on as usual, where we've needed to visit, we've visited, where we've been able to do things remotely, we have done. And again, people, anecdotally are saying that some of the work that's coming through is quite complex. Safeguarding, there's been an increase in referrals in some areas, none of which is probably a surprise to people. That's been around, people being very stressed, carer stress, domestic violence, some incidences of mental health, and quite a bit around alcohol misuse, a few around pressures in provision of care, where people have had to have their care plans changed on a short-term basis due to problems with capacity. I won't read them all, you can pick up on any if you want to. I just gave a little bit of an overview of some of the demand and how you can see the peaks and troughs throughout the different lockdowns and then coming out of lockdown. Vaccinations, that's been very challenging at times. We were responsible for submitting all the names of frontline staff across both in-house and the private and the independent sector, sorry, and that amounted to thousands of names. I think it's fair to say the vaccination has gone well on the whole. There's been a few hiccups. Most of our staff have been vaccinated who wanted to be vaccinated. The take-up has been very good. All of our homes have had their first dose of vaccination, and the second doses are all booked in. The carers team, so the team that are working with unpaid carers, they've been working virtually with most people, been using video messaging and telephone contact, and we have had Chromebooks from Welsh Government, which we gave to some of our young carers. So they were carers 18 to 25 or 16 to 25, I can't remember which, so that they can work remotely, but they can also link in with each other. Some people have actually found the remote way of working a better way of working. Day services, in the main, we've carried on visiting people who came to day services, but just doing things very differently and on a more individual basis. What we've been able to provide has been very different depending on where we are with lockdown and what people's preferences are. So, when we're not in level 4, we've been visiting people at home, taking them out, going for a walk, going for a coffee. And when we've been in lockdown, we've still been going into people's houses, obviously wearing the appropriate PPE, etc., and doing activities with them in their own home. And respite has been quite challenging at times, and I think a lot of that is more around the ability to go into somewhere on a short-term basis. A lot of people who have had respite, we've actually provided that respite in their own home on a 24-hour basis. We've done some creative work. We've used a flat in Lavender Gardens, used that as a respite a base for a couple of people. Again, we've reached into those. I think emergency respite has been challenging, and that's not been necessarily about the availability. That's been about the fact that if people are going into respite, they have to have had a swab within 48 hours. That's not always been that easy to access in the community. But also when they go, if someone goes into a residential setting for respite, then they have to be isolated for 14 days. And obviously that can have a big impact on that person, and particularly if they don't understand why they have to be isolated. But just for anybody being isolated for 14 days can be quite a challenging experience. So everything I put, yeah, that's like I say, a bit of an overview of what we've been doing over the last 12 months. Any questions?
Thanks for that, Cheryl, and I'm sure, like everybody, would just like to pass on our thanks and gratitude to all your staff and for all your hard work. And I think you made the point really clear there. It's been a challenge on new way of working, and sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't. But the good thing about it is actually when we don't get it right, we can make sure we get it right the next time. And I think it's a learning curve for many out there, and we're still going to have to learn as well, Cheryl, I think, aren't we? Because we're in a new era as well, and I like the digital and the last conversations, the digital side of this. Yeah, we're a rural county, and a lot of people don't have the digital connectivity. Same as when we spoke in cabinet in full council on Thursday about people who need to access forms for DWP and stuff and fill the forms in for obtaining grants. It's not the same as somebody sitting in the house filling the form in as it is on the telephone. It makes it twice as hard and understanding. Can they hear you and all them things? So yes, it is a challenge, and as I say, we really appreciate your hard work. Right, I've got some hands up there. I've got Penny. She's the cabinet member now. Penny just wants to have a few words. Penny.
Yeah, do you mind, Chair?
No,
sorry, I was going to ask your permission.
No, you're very welcome.
Very quickly, I just wanted to reiterate our gratitude to Eve and all the team from Adult Services. We all know how hard you worked, and you worked above and beyond your remit. I mean, you were all on your knees at the beginning of the year in particular, and you provided the care and support for everyone. And, you know, you did more than your hours, you did more than your remit. So we just want to thank you all, you know, everybody. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thanks, Eve, and please pass that on.
Yeah,
thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, members, I've got no hands showing for questions, so that means we're not going to hold you up there, Eve. So yeah, pass it on there. Penny, yeah, her hand's gone down. So I've got no questions, and keep with the good work, and please, we'll ask you back. Just give us updates every now and again, and take care. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, let's get into the agenda. Just bear with me a sec. We've got agenda item number 6, which is the track and trace protect verbal update. I think this is the second time we've had track and trace with us, and we had you with us a few months ago with Dave. So I think I've got Jill Diskin. Is it Louise Driscoll?
Yes, hi.
Are you with us? Yeah, there
Hi.
you go. Yes, and you are Gillian, and I've got Louise there with us. Okay, just run us through track and trace. I think Dave came last time. I can't remember.
He did well. Yes, I was on with Dave, and this is back in July now, so this is going back some time, and there's been quite a lot, as you can imagine, has happened since then. So going into September, we started to pick up on cases. We had the environmental health team, my team, were actually doing the track and tracing in that period. and we had the advisors team, which was then under Richard Drinkwater. So going into September, we started to have pickup for track and trace for Caerphilly and North Wales, because they were having cases, and Caerphilly were going into lockdown. So that was in September. October, the whole of the track and trace team came under environmental health and public protection. So we had the advisors and the tracers as well. And we then had added some structure to the advisors and had support supervisors and developed the team into quite something going into October. So October was quite a busy time, just getting the team into structure, building it, because we knew what was coming our way. Basically, the wave in December, the wave in November had been predicted, so this was coming our way. So coming to November, we'd got the team in a good place. We'd started getting numbers increasing. Louise will give you a bit more on that, about the numbers later on. And so by December, the fan was hit, and the numbers hit very, very high numbers in December. But we were taking on people from around the council, and this is the way we did it, which was different possibly from the other authorities. We took people from redeployment, we took people from On Life, we're helping out volunteers from around MCC. We took people that we knew from outside. We handpicked people that had also environmental health or medical backgrounds, and this gave us a huge ability to respond very quickly to cases and clusters, which we did during that time, the busy time in November and December. And when the fire break went out or started, we were confident, because we were able to keep a lid on clusters and outbreaks in our area because of this quick response that we had, because of our team, the environmental health team, was so integrated into the TTP team that we were working very, very closely together, because we were one team basically. And then going up into January, February time. So February, we started to see numbers coming down, which was fantastic. And so we were able to then flex down the team. So all the volunteers we took on, the casuals, the On Life, the audit team came out to help. And we've slowly now, we're back down to a very core, small number of team, and just waiting to see what will happen in the next few weeks, because obviously we've got to have the schools going back. We've got the LFT testing going on, and all of the lockdown rules slowly easing. So we are in a position now that we know we can flex right up when we need to, but also flex down in the team when we don't need so many people on. And there's other work that's been done around the area, but there's still a lot of work being done in the background, as Louise will tell you, on the updating of everything that's going on and coming out in regards to vaccine testing and all that sort of thing. So I'll hand you over to Louise, if that's okay.
Yeah, morning, Louise.
Hi everybody. So yeah, I sort of help alongside with Jill do the day-to-day running of the TTTP team. We are now sort of down to about 15 tracers spread over a service that is from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. So it's not a 9 till 5 service. It's very much 7 days a week and long days. So it's making sure that we respond accordingly to all the cases that come into Monmouthshire. Paul Matthews is very supportive, and he does report all our numbers. And at the moment, we're seeing a real decline. The lockdown has very much worked in Monmouthshire, and alongside with vaccines, I guess. But yeah, I think this weekend was the first time that we'd had sort of 1 or 2 cases drop into our queue, and they were associated with hospital transmission. So since we started tracing back at the beginning of June, I think within Monmouthshire alone, we've had 4,174 cases. So, and the stats are really good, because out of all those cases, and I know it's a different story in England, and we get very frustrated here in Wales that we're under the same umbrella, but it is a success story in Wales. And in Monmouthshire alone, out of those 4,000 plus cases, we've responded to 99.7%. So we've contacted almost all of our positive cases within a 48-hour period. So I think that's a real success of Monmouthshire and the staff that are being employed by Monmouthshire. And that is across Gwent, but I do like to mention that our stats at the moment are on the top of the leaderboard. Not that it's a competition, but we we take it quite seriously. And out of those 4,000 plus cases, we've generated just over 6,000 contacts. So out of that, we've isolated people to help stop the spread of COVID within the community of Monmouthshire. We also work very closely and have daily meetings with our other partners in Gwent, so Caerphilly, Blaenau Gwent, Torfaen and Newport, and we meet we meet daily, because also we have people that are coming into Monmouthshire to work, so we have really good communications to enable us to react to any cases or workplaces within Monmouthshire that might see a cluster of cases. We review that data daily and the cases daily, and we report weekly to Public Health Wales and Welsh Government on our cases, any spikes. So we're very much on top of it. And being an environmental health officer in TTP means that I've got the link, or the team have got the link with workplaces also, which we had established before sort of COVID came about. So we've got great communications with our businesses within Monmouthshire where they might need some hands with track and trace internally, and also COVID restrictions. Also, which has been a huge piece of work the last few weeks, is our works with schools. And obviously, you might be aware now that schools are rolling out LFD testing. Now, LFD testing is the quick test. It's been referred to before like the pregnancy test. You get an instant result within a few minutes. And all our teachers, all our teaching staff, all our school staff, our early years, our childminders have all been issued kits. And we have regular meetings with our head teachers, though, who I have to say have been superb working with TTP. So anytime they get a positive case or a query, we've worked very, very closely with them since September. And what's great about them, they listen to the advice they get given and they action it in accordance. So I think we've had low numbers compared to the rest of Gwent, because the head teachers have done a brilliant job in getting, and the support staff of getting bubbles isolated. Schools are very much in Monmouthshire keen not to isolate groups if they don't need to be. So whereas before we might initially isolate a whole year group, we'll go back and do some tracking of and tracing of that positive case, and we're trying to limit as much as we can and safely the amount of staff and children affected, to keep as many children in school safely as possible. So the schools have been excellent, and they've had an awful lot of change and a lot of things to deal with, and often they find out before us from Welsh Government. So we've very much worked really closely with Will McLean and his team, and I'd just like to thank the head teachers as well here, because they've worked with us so well and listened to everything, and they've had a lot thrown at them. So yeah, that's really helped. And also, obviously sometimes they're our biggest clusters, the schools, so we do focus a lot. And then some of our tracers also, as well as being ex-environmental health or got clinical background, we've got some ex-teachers helping us with trace, so they understand the culture of the schools and how to communicate with them. So it's, as a team, as Jill said before, we've got expertise in all different areas. And obviously, as you know, we've been working with care homes and the commissioning team also. So that's weekly, daily work that Track and Trace are involved with. New introductions that have been brought in are back tracing. Monmouthshire has stood alone on this in Gwent, and we've done it from day one. So we've always gone back, because traditionally you'd only go back 48 hours. We've always gone back further and issued things like warn and inform where we think it's appropriate. So if we find that a lot of places have visited a premises, for example, a rugby club or a pub, this was obviously before the last lockdown, we would work with that premises and maybe do warn and inform. And you would have seen a peak sort of November time in Caldicott, and that was as a result of us encouraging those workplaces and people that visited them to contact their customers, employees, and advise them to get tests, because there was a high incident rate within the community. So yeah, our businesses and our other health professionals that we've worked with has really helped keep numbers down in Monmouthshire, and we've had good compliance. We've also done studies on people struggling with isolating, and we've very much worked up with the partnership team, and we've linked with them to give you know, to give the residents of Monmouthshire some support on isolation. So that's been very beneficial. So the 14 days, the backward tracing now is now all of Wales are doing it. So then now this is anybody who'd been in contact with a positive case in 14 days is now advised to get a test. They don't have to isolate if they're out of the 48 hours infectious period, but they're all advised to get tests. So hopefully we'll find those asymptomatic people that are out in the community, as well as the Welsh Government trying to keep up with everything, releasing guidance on anybody who's been a direct contact in their infectious period to now have tests twice within the first day and 8 days. So that's been a new change. So we've had a lot of changes the last 3 weeks, which obviously our cases have dramatically dropped since January, where we were having 200 plus a week, and I think this week we're now down to 25 cases in the last 7 days. So, you know, gradually we've gone down quite significantly. Obviously, we are expecting some increase with restrictions being lifted, more children back at school, but we are working with schools and we're working also with businesses, and we're being very proactive in our approach of premises opening, and obviously talking to them about TTP alongside with COVID restrictions. So it's a very much joined up exercise with licensing, with schools, and trading standards. So and it's helped because some of them have worked in TTP, so they understand what it's about. So yeah, it's all changed, and it's forever changing in TTP, and we're trying to keep up with it. And yeah, it's been an interesting time.
Okay, thank you both, and as previous, pass on our thanks to your teams for all their hard work, and keep up the hard work. You're going to be there for some time, I would have thought, on track and trace, and it is important that we have track and trace. I mean, there's been a lot of things said about track and trace. Just a quick question from myself. I've got a couple of members there as well. The isolation point of all this is a family member of mine who isn't in Wales. They were contacted on many occasions to making sure they are isolating, chasing them up. Just give me an explanation how when somebody has to isolate, self-isolate, the contact, do you ring them every day, twice a day, or how does all that work within Wales?
So if you're a positive case, obviously you then isolate, and you get a tracer call, and you get backed up with a letter or SMS, a text message. That's the positive person. But people in that household will then be classed as a contact or any other close contact. So whether that be at work, school, or out in the community. And yes, they will be contacted for 10 days from the last time they had the infectious period. And we either call, and they can opt for SMS, although in Monmouthshire we don't like to go down that route. We'd much rather have that conversation. However, some people can't cope with that, so we do lots of support around that. Yes, there are daily calls. They're called daily follow-up calls, and we do those daily for the 10 days, and we're tracking how they are, how their welfare is, checking that they're isolating, and also checking if they're well, and if they should go for a test. This has changed in the last week, and now we're saying, whereas before they would just isolate, we're also saying isolate but get a test. So that's something that's new, that's coming. In England, unfortunately, it's very, very different. It's not run by local government, as you know, it's run by a private company, and it's very different. They don't contact all their positive cases. They send e-forms. We did e-forms for about a week at Christmas time when we were overwhelmed, and they just didn't work. People don't get back to you, and you can't stop people from isolating or find out those contacts. So that's still taking place in England. So it's a very different system. And we're also dealing with those residents that work in England, or people that go to school in Wales but live in England. So we're trying to work as closely as we can, but there's a very different process in England to it is in Wales.
Okay, thanks for that. I've got Martin. Martin.
Just trying to get my camera on. There we are. Thank you very much, Chair. Brilliant report, and you must have at times been so stretched, but I think all the population of Monmouthshire and South East Wales are extremely grateful for everything you've done. And Louise, you made the point that it's local authorities that are doing it here in Wales, and I think the English government missed a trick, because I think the process has worked so much better in Wales. And I just make the comment that at one time, when I was in school inspection, Serco actually took over the contract for school inspection from Ofsted. Let's just say I wasn't surprised when they couldn't make the test and trace work in England, but well done. My question really is around a concern for the future on where we are now, because in many countries in Europe, they're now experiencing a third wave. My son is actually in Malta at the moment, and since last week has been locked down in a third wave. And I know that parts of Germany and I think now also in France, there are local lockdowns as a third wave. Now, I know that in the UK, we're so much further on with our immunisation. And I wonder if anything has been said about preparing for a third wave, and if so, whether the nature of that will be different, because I think the picture that's emerging in the UK is one of high vaccination rates.
Seems to have frozen.
Hi, Martin. You seem to have just gone off there.
I think Jill,
yeah, I can give a bit of a response on basically the Welsh Government has said that there will be funding for the track and trace until September at the moment. So we are going to be keeping a core team of tracers. But as I said at the very beginning, it has always been the environmental health officers who started it. So we're always there, we're always doing it because this was part of our job, and this is why we thought we were best placed to do it, because we have the local connections, we understand our area, we have that, as Louise says, the connections with businesses, we know them and we can talk to them and they'll respond to us, and that's why we feel it has really, really worked. So yes, Welsh Government do see that there could well be possibly a third wave. This could be in kind of May time. So the contracts and TTP will continue until they've all been extended to June, but there is funding to September at least at the moment. So yes, it's still going to be carrying on.
And Public Health Wales are very much looking at predicting a third wave. But at not the scale as before, I think. And obviously, one thing we are doing in track and trace is monitoring those positive cases that have had the vaccine. And I think that will be the next study on if, have you had the vaccine? Have you got COVID? That is something that our track and trace develops all the time, doesn't it, Jill? And that's something that we've introduced this week to ask those questions. But we have weekly IMTs with Public Health Wales who give us updates on what's happening. So we are very much involved with any decisions that happen.
Okay, thank you both. Did you get that, Martin? You seem to have frozen on the screen there, Martin.
I'm afraid my laptop just totally died, and so I didn't get any of it. But I'll have a talk to somebody later. I'm sure that they can fill me in, and of course I can have a look at the recording. So don't worry about it. I can catch up on that. God knows what's happened to my laptop. It just completely died, but it has sprung back to life again. You can't keep a good man down.
No, you can't. You're right there, Martin. Well done. Right. Yeah, I'm sure the answers, they were positive answers. We'll get them for you, Martin. I've got Louise Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question about the NHS app, this app that you're supposed to put on your phone and whether it's actually assisted or not, and if so, in how many cases. I'd be interested to know how useful it's been. Thank you.
I can comment on the app. It's not linked to TTP at all. And we, even though the app tells you to isolate, yes, that is purely a guide, but unless you're contacted by TTP, then that's the only reason officially why you would have to isolate, not by the app. The app's a guide. We didn't have any involvement with the app or its implementation. it does go off with school children if there's a case, and we've given advice to turn off the contact tracing bit of the app. So I can't comment too much on the app other than it isn't linked to TTP, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So in general, on your track and trace, you don't use it. It's more a question of asking people about the circumstances of where they've been and so forth, is it?
Yeah, a trace interview takes nearly up to 2 hours, as it can do on the phone, because you're now going back 14 days. And one of the things we say is, and we ask about where you've been, what locations you've been, car sharing, been to people's houses, businesses and things like that. So yeah, the track and trace, it's not connected to the app at all.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's okay.
Right, I don't think we've any more questions. Can I just ask a question, ladies? You were saying about the kits that we have, because I got them in the house if my wife's got the kits she has to test. How reliable are they? Are they proving to be a bit of controversial, or is it just it is something to do with they seem to be giving out slightly different results, don't they? And I think then it's if you have a if you have a test and they're showing a positive, you then have got to go and have a proper test. Yeah. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and we've obviously been using them in our schools in early years, and I think we've had one case from the LFD test. But if you had symptoms, we would say not to use a test kit. We'd recommend you go to a testing centre and you get a PCR test. Okay. Not sure, they used them in Mercer back in before Christmas, and I think the reliability is fairly good, and we haven't been told otherwise. Obviously, it's a Welsh government, they've issued them, and we've got processes in place with TTP to isolate those people that have a positive, but then still go and get a PCR test.
Yeah, okay. Right, that's great, no problem. Thank you both, and from everybody, as said previous, well done, and keep the hard work up and pass our thoughts on to the teams, please.
Will do. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Right, members, let's get back into the agenda, and we've had some real good updates this morning from all our teams there and all the hard work they're putting in. So let's get into agenda item number 7, which is the forward work program. Everybody happy with that? I think during our pre-meeting, Paul mentioned something. And Hazel, you got your hand up?
Yes, Chair, just to mention on behalf of Councillor Pavia, he's asked me to remind you that we'd like to look at the plan on a page, which will be the council's forward focus for this remaining sort of part of the administration. So we can kind of bring that to a meeting and then look at our work programme and trying to align some of our activity with that strategic direction going forward, Chair. If that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Any members want to say anything or anything you'd like to bring onto the work programme, or is as is? And if there's anything you think of, we can always include it. We'll have a chat and include it on there. Nope, got nothing on there. Right. Okay. Let's move on then. Let's move on to the Cabinet and Council forward work programme. Do we take that as is? Any movement? Then we can bring it to. We can always bring things to an urgent meeting if there's something crops up. But I think it's straightforward. Everybody happy with that? Yep. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. And then to confirm the minutes from our previous meeting. Any amendments? Anything? Would anybody want to add anything to them minutes? No. Okay. So we'll have a proposer and a seconder for them minutes, please, as an accurate and true record of our meeting. Do I have a proposer?
Happy to propose, Simon. Sheila.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder, Louise?
Yeah, happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise. Right, and then we go to agenda item number 10, which is to confirm the minutes, to confirm the meeting for the 27th of April. Is everybody happy with that? A member did mention the time of starting, 10:30, in case it clashes. Are you happy to carry on with them times? And then if there are any issues which arise, we can always amend that, can't we, as reference to changing the time, as long as we give notice. Hazel?
Yes, Chair, the meeting time does vary for just your committee, and that was something that you decided just before Christmas. So, I mean, if you'd like to meet back at 10 o'clock, same as all the other selects, you can. But I think you felt you wanted to start a little bit later, so it helps some members who are doing the homeschooling and that kind of thing. So it's completely up to you. We can do that according to members' wishes.
Okay, I've got Louise with a hand up. Louise?
Yeah, I think it's fine as it is. The question I've got is about when we were going to have workshops on various things. Are dates been arranged on those? Thank you.
They haven't, but we do need to have a workshop on the Gypsy and Traveller Needs Assessment. Now, Economy and Development Select Committee, they hold their workshops in the evening, and that seems to work for them. But that wouldn't mean you'd have to do that. It would be mainly this committee that would be interested in those, whereas the Economy and Development ones, I think because it's LDP, everybody seems to be interested in attending. So we can set those up as and when it suits members.
I think personally I prefer a daytime meeting, because some weeks I end up with about 3 evening meetings, you know, so I prefer it in the day, but obviously it depends what other members want. Thank you. Okay,
we can look at that when you'd like to. Any other comments on that, members? Do you prefer an evening or a day meeting? I'm easy, as long as it's not Tuesday night. Members? I know the lighter nights are here now as well, so it may be maybe more people would prefer the day meeting than the night time. Then they can do other things. No, okay. We'll see how that goes then, and if we do one, we can when the Gypsy Traveller one arises, we can have that workshop and diary it, and then if it goes well, we know where we are. Right, members, and thank you for your time this morning. It's been a very productive session on the basis of knowledge, and could we close the meeting? Is that fine? Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a safe time and safe journeys if you're going anywhere. And I say I got my vaccine tomorrow, so I'm on the homeward straight with a bit of luck. And take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye. See you soon.